evening, everyone. The moment has finally arrived. The moment that you've all been waiting for. It's Mission Impossible 2, the world premiere BYOD protocol. Thanks very much for joining us today. My name's Imran Idris. I'm marketing manager here at Cisco Meraki. I'm also joined by Mr. Ethan Hunt today, who will be completing the mission, aka Simon Thompson. Do you want to say hello, Simon?
Hi, everyone. Welcome along. Looking forward to this.
So let's kick things off with the agenda to give you guys a flavor of what's coming up. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Cisco Meraki to begin with. For those of you on the line who are less familiar with Cisco Meraki as an organization within the bigger Cisco organization, we'll also then cover the cloud managed architecture, very basic, really the principles behind cloud management and how we have the architecture set up at Cisco Meraki. We'll then get straight into the actual mission and BYOD protocol. We'll set Simon the requirements that we need for the network, and then he will go away and configure the entire network live on the air, showing you every step of the way. We'll then have a short intermission of a couple of minutes to give you guys time to ask any final questions you have, and then we'll reconvene after reviewing the questions and answer them. However, you don't have to hold your questions until the end. Anything pops into your mind. I'm joined by an elite team today of 4 people from Cisco Meraki who are on the line to answer any questions you might have, so you can communicate with them at any time using the chat functionality on your right-hand Citrix pane. So I'm also very pleased to announce that all IT professionals attending today's webinar for the very first time on behalf of their organizations are eligible for a free Cisco Meraki 82.11n access point with a 3-year license. We do ask that you just give us a quick call to confirm some information. First, if you wouldn't mind confirming your organization's shipping information so we can make sure that the AP gets the correct person at the correct location. Secondly, if you can confirm your organization's VAT number, we just need that for legal purposes. You can find our contact information in this reminder email for this webinar, or you can visit meraki.cisco.com/contact. So about Cisco Meraki then, for those of you who are less familiar with the organization, well, Cisco Meraki is actually born out of an acquisition that Cisco made at the end of 2012, whereby they acquired a company called Meraki. So even before Meraki was acquired, we were the leader in cloud networking with over 20,000 customer networks deployed worldwide in over 100 countries. The initial technology that Meraki is based upon was actually founded back in 2006 at MIT. Our then founders were PhD candidates, and they were looking at some pretty sophisticated mesh networking algorithms as a part of their PhD research. So they stumbled across something quite proprietary, and today that forms the basis of our cloud-managed edge and branch networking portfolio, which is complete with wireless, switching, security, WAN optimization, as well as mobile device management products. So now that we are part of Cisco, it's a very exciting time for us. In terms of organizational structure, we formed the brand new cloud networking group. As a part of this, we are going to be increasing investment in Meraki technology to really grow the team, particularly within R&D, to accelerate our already very rapid product development process. For the first time as well, we're going to be able to utilize Cisco's huge global reach to really bring Meraki to new markets and new geographies. For those of you on the line who are familiar with Meraki from before the acquisition, you'll be pleased to know that there aren't any changes planned to pricing, licenses, product roadmaps, etc. Everything you've known in the past will remain the same for the foreseeable future. So to put the demonstration that we're going to be doing a little bit later on into perspective, I just wanted to share this slide here with you and to really take a look at the major differences between the cloud-managed architecture and perhaps the more traditional approach that you're used to. So say, for example, we're deploying cloud-managed Cisco Meraki Wi-Fi at a bunch of different locations. That could be a headquarters location, a campus, branch office, retail store, or a teleworker, which is becoming very popular nowadays. So with cloud-managed Wi-Fi, the only thing that hardware device that we need on site is actually the Cisco Meraki wireless access points. There's no need for any additional Wi-Fi controllers or any overlay management systems that you might expect with traditional approaches. That's the only thing you need. The wireless access point will tunnel a secure connection to the cloud, and you will have management capability using the Cisco Meraki web-based dashboard. It's also worth noting that the architecture and the hardware products that we have, networking devices, are interoperable with other vendors' solutions. So you can very easily have a Cisco Meraki wireless access point integrated with a switch network and a firewall that belongs to another networking vendor. Very doable, and also vice versa. So switches and security appliances from Cisco Meraki interoperable with other vendors' wireless LAN devices. So we do have out-of-band cloud management in every product. By that, broken down into 3 categories, really. The scalability. We've got pretty much limited throughput, as we aren't often bottlenecked by overlay management systems or indeed Wi-Fi controllers, which can actually act as single points of failure for your network. In this approach, you can actually add devices or sites in literally minutes, and I'm not going to touch on that too much right now because it will become very apparent when Simon is completing the mission. The architecture we have set up here is also highly reliable. We've got multiple data centers dotted around the globe, and actually at any given time, each Cisco Meraki hardware device is connected to 2 data centers simultaneously. So what this means in reality is that if any one of these data centers was to go down for whatever reason, it would seamlessly back up to the other data center, so there's no interruption in service for yourselves. So this actually means that the network functions even if the connection to the cloud is interrupted, and this gives us 99.99% uptime SLA. Let's move on to talking about security. If I can draw your attention to the diagram on the left-hand side, what we've got set up is a very simple network diagram consisting of a cloud-managed Cisco Meraki wireless access point, which is hooked up to a switch, which then goes to a router or firewall, and then that goes out to your T1 or DSL. When traffic hits the T1 or DSL, you can see there's 2 very separate streams here. There's the red arrow, which is denoting user data. So you can see that clearly bypasses our cloud. The only thing that is flowing to the cloud is secure management data, and in terms of bandwidth, it's very negligible. It's around 1 kilobit a second per Cisco Meraki hardware device. And this is information such as how many megabytes a certain client used for YouTube, etc. So the way we have the architecture set up means we are fully HIPAA compliant, which is a very important healthcare standard in North America. So nobody does any work in that industry without having compliance to HIPAA. Or perhaps you're a retail organization, or you want to take credit card transactions over your network, in which case we are payments card industry compliant. We are level 1 certified there, which is the highest level of certification one can achieve. In order to bolster our security measures, we also hold third-party security audits and daily penetration tests to really bump up on our security measures. You can read up on our reliability and security information at meraki.cisco.com/trust. So let's get on with the mission then. Let's sign the requirement of our network. So Mission Impossible BYOD protocol. So Simon, we have an existing infrastructure this time. So for those of you who did join us for the phenomenally successful Mission Impossible 1, that is available on our YouTube channel, on our Meraki YouTube channel. So if you'd like to listen to and watch that again, that's available there. But this time we have an existing network rather than setting one up from scratch. We have a LAN, we have a DHCP, an Active Directory server which we'd like to integrate into, and we also have switches, which doesn't really matter which switches they are, Cisco Meraki or another vendors. So your mission, Simon, if you choose to accept it, is to create a wireless network for staff using company-owned and personal devices. So let's break it down a bit more. So the types of devices that we want to be able to get onto the network, firstly, allocated company-owned devices. These are devices that a person in an education environment, a student or a staff, would actually have assigned to them, or in a more enterprise environment, you'd have everyone having their own laptop. So we want these devices to be able to log onto the Wi-Fi using their Active Directory credentials. We also want to deny social media apps for staff 80 credentials and restrict bandwidth to a total of 5 megabits per second per device. And also, let's spice things up by actually enrolling a new employee onto the network. So let's enroll a new employee's MacBook onto our MDM. Second device is an unallocated or shared company-owned iPad. So this is something that's kind of left around and employees can pick up in a common area and start using. So we also want to authenticate this device to the Wi-Fi using AD credentials. Please also enroll this device onto our MDM, and using MDM, enforce a passcode and deny the use of the camera. And also, because we're not that mean, we'd also please like to play Angry Birds on the iPad, so push that out. Finally, employee-owned personal devices. So these are only allowed to authenticate to the network, Wi-Fi network, after being authorized by our IT department. And again, they're going to log on to the Wi-Fi using their AD credentials. So we want AD credentials to be used to log all the devices onto our Wi-Fi to make it as simple as possible for users. However, for employee-owned personal devices, we want to deny social media applications, deny video and music applications, and also set a per device bandwidth limit to 1 megabit per second. There's more though. That's not it, Simon. Thought you got off easily. We'd also like all of this done on one SSID. Everything on one. Using just a Cisco Meraki cloud-managed wireless access point. What do you say, Simon?
Well, just as with Mission Impossible 1, it's a tough call, but I think we can do it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get things started. I'm going to switch across to, yes, absolutely, let's accept that mission. I'm going to switch across to my web browser so we can get things started. First step is to log into the Meraki dashboard. So this is a common view that you will have, logging in via a web browser rather than using dedicated software installed on your computer. So I'm going to log in with my own credentials. It's worth pointing out that this login is obviously a very important one. It is a secure connection, HTTPS, but you can also apply multi-factor authentication to this as well to make it a super secure connection. Right, so for today's purposes, we're going to go into the support lab, which is where we're going to create the networks that we're going to use for the demo. So this is the standard view you start off with. This is a common look and feel. Some of you may have seen this before. This is just your regular Cisco Meraki dashboard. It is effectively a single pane of glass for all of the networks you may want to create. Today we are going to create a brand new network for wireless purposes. So let me go down to the bottom of this list, and here we have create a network. So it's going to ask me what type of network I'm going to create, what type of equipment am I going to run on that, and also to give it a name, I'm going to call it MI2. It is a wireless network, and what I need to do now is apply an access point from my inventory to actually host that wireless SSID that's going to be created. So I happen to remember a few of the digits of the serial number, so I'll just type those in here. And there is the access point we're going to use today. So it really is that simple. From my inventory, I've just picked one of the APs. You could pick a whole bunch of them if you wanted to get things started. We'll keep things simple today. We've got this access point sitting here ready to be configured and set up for our demo today. So create the network. Now, once it's created, we'll be taken straight into the network. So the first step normally here would be to actually place your access point onto a map. You can see here this is a Google map. So we use Google Maps for placing of our devices, but you can also upload your own floor plans as well, which is a really nice way of doing it if you've got a large campus and you want to see exactly where those APs are deployed. So we're not going to bother with this bit right now. We'll come back to that later on. What we're interested in doing is setting up the network to actually make some use of it. So if I go into the configure section and pick on SSIDs, I can see which SSIDs are available to me. I've got a maximum of 15 that I can set up. And by default, it's always going to set up a single network which is based around the network name that I've used to start that configuration. So that's MI2. So you can see here that our first SSID is now called MI2 Wi-Fi. So that's the name I want to use. However, something I'm not so happy about is the fact that right now this wireless network is wide open, which means anybody could hop onto it if they so choose. So we want to go in and start locking that down as per the instructions I was given. So to do that, I'm going to go to the access control screen. And you'll see here that we have a whole raft of options for getting users connected to a network. Some of these may look familiar to you. Even if you've only ever configured broadband at home, you may well have seen something like a pre-shared key for setting up your wireless. In an enterprise environment or even an educational environment, it might be more common to use something like a radius server. So that's what we're going to use today. So I'm going to pick on WPA2 Enterprise, and we have two choices here. You can use Meraki's cloud-based authentication, or you can use your very own existing radius server, which is very common for a lot of our existing customers. So I'm going to select my radius server, and when I do so, I get a new section down here called radius servers, and I can now go in and start configuring that server's details. So I happen to know those. I've got them right here. In fact, I've done this so many times, I've memorized it by now. So let me just go in and type these details in. And then over here we have a test widget built right into the dashboard. Now this is really handy because what it's going to enable you to do is test connectivity from the access point that is configured on this network right the way through to that radius server. So we know that if we get a successful authentication using this test widget, then we know the AP is able to reach the AD server, which is really helpful if you're trying to troubleshoot authentication issues that your clients may be having. So to test, I am going to just type in a user. That's me, Ethan. I'm playing Ethan today. And his password, and I click on test. And the test is completed successfully. So we're able to reach this server. And something I want to point out to you that's really useful for us today is this radius attribute here, which has been fed back from the network policy server that's built into our Active Directory Windows server. What it's actually done is it's passed me back a variable that's called filter ID, and that variable is relating to a group on the Active Directory server. So that group ID is called staff, and you're going to see in just a moment that I'm going to create policies using this filter ID so that I can match users who are authenticated to this group with a specific group policy. So let me show you how this alters. So I've got another test user here. He's the IT guy, Q. And so we just go in and do a test on Q, and once again we get a pass, and this time we have a filter ID, comes back IT admin. So all looking good there. I am happy with this, so click on a save, and we're ready to move on to the next step, which is group policies. So we're going to configure a couple of group policies for test purposes. And the first one we'll do is the one that's going to impact the staff users. So you'll notice I've used the exact same name as that filter ID that we saw in the test widget just a moment ago. I'm now going to set up custom bandwidth for these users. That's going to be 5 megabits per second. And down here I'm going to set up custom firewall rules. And there's a whole raft of things that I could set up here, but I'm just targeting the specifics that I've been asked to look at, which are related to blocking of social networks. So I'm going to go in and block social web and photo sharing. So this is a category-based approach, really simple way of doing layer 7 firewalling, a lot easier than the cryptic way that's done at layer 3 with your IP addresses and your ports and your TCPs and your UDPs. No need to remember any of that anymore because we've made life so much easier with this widget built into the dashboard. So I could choose any one of a subset of social web and photo sharing, or I could just blank out the whole lot, which is what I'm going to do for now. So save the changes on there. And I'm also going to set up another group, which we may use for testing at some point. So call that IT admin. I'm not going to restrict bandwidth in this particular case, but I am going to set up custom firewall rule again. And this time I'm going to block sports instead. So we can test that out if we need to do that later. Good. So that's my 2 policies set up, which will associate with the 2 groups that I have on my Active Directory server. So now it's time to create another network, which is going to be our mobile device management network. So we have a mobile device management solution built into our portfolio, and that is called Systems Manager. So I'm going to use Systems Manager right now, and I'm going to name this network MI2 MDM. Simple as that. So again, once this is done, it takes me straight into that network. And the first view that we're presented with is a bit of an introduction to Systems Manager. Over on the right-hand side, you can see the clients that we support with this tool. So we support desktop operating systems as well as all the most common mobile platforms as well. So if I head over now to set up deployment, this is where I go to start to add devices onto this, this network. So just click into the deployment section, and so I see on this screen I've got enrollment tools for iOS, Android, and Mac. For Windows, it's actually a downloaded installer file, which is actually prepared uniquely for each Systems Manager network. But this is a really nice way of doing it for these particular platforms. So we have a network ID here, 01469583996. I'm going to copy that into my clipboard because we're going to make use of that right now as we enroll our first device onto the network. So let me change screens, and what I'm going to do now is actually go to a shared screen. This is a remote desktop screen of a different Mac. This is the Mac that we're going to give to Ethan to use. So let me just flip across to that. So you'll see that I'm now using a remote screen sharing tool, and I'm now on Simon's MacBook Air is the computer I'm using now. So currently this machine is not connected to the wireless network, but we're going to rectify that now. I'm going to actually test out the wireless network that we have created live. So turning Wi-Fi on. And let's see, so it's joined one of the remembered networks, but what I want to do is actually join the one that I've just created, so MI2 Wi-Fi. And once again, you can see we get asked for login credentials, so it's exactly what I would hope to see. So again, I put in my credentials for Ethan and join the network. Now this is going to connect me through to the AD server, so we are pushed a certificate from that server to make sure that we're happy that we're authenticating against the right machine. So I'm going to continue there, and then that's going to get me connected through and onto this Wi-Fi network. Hopefully, taking a few moments. This is always the fun part of a live demo while we wait for things to happen the way they should do. Seems to be taking a while to pick up an IP address there, but it looks like, yep, it has succeeded now. So good, we are onto the network. Big sigh of relief all around in the room here, let me tell you. So now that we're onto that network, let's test a few things out. First of all, I'm going to try to go to Meraki's website, so that should work absolutely fine. And it does, that's good news. But I should not be able to get to a social network, so let's pick on the most popular one, facebook.com. And there we are, we've got a block message there saying that we're blocked from the network. We can't use it right now. So that's behaving exactly the way that I'd like it to. Good, now that we are online with that network, I'm going to actually get the Mac enrolled. So go to m.meraki.com, which is the site that you go to get enrolled. And I'm going to paste in the network ID that we saw earlier on the dashboard setup tool. And then all I need to do is click on register and the process will begin. So it will download a profile, and the way in which this is done is that the profiles actually get installed onto the operating system, so I'm asked for my administrator password to get those installed. And then it begins the process of downloading those. It takes a couple of moments to do this. There's a couple of steps that I need to approve. This is actually quite a new thing that we've actually got on the Mac operating system now, so that we can actually get these installed using the regular operating system profiles section. It'll all make sense in just a moment. So if you've used a Mac, you'll recognize the system's preferences screen, and it actually goes into that. All right, so there we are. We've got it in, and so it says Meraki Management, Device Profiles. So to show you the Systems Preferences tool, this is the screen that you're probably familiar with if you're a Mac user. You'll see down here we now have this new section called Profiles. So that's where they are. And once that's done, it now tells me that registration is complete, so I can now look for the device in the Cisco Meraki dashboard. So let me go back to the configuration Mac, the host machine if you like. And so now I have one of the tools here is under the monitor section is I can go and look at the list of clients. And now we've got the Mac enrolled, it should appear in this list. And there it is. Has now successfully enrolled onto the device, so onto the systems manager. Excellent. So we have successfully completed our first part of the exercise. So I now need to go back and see that I've done everything correctly. Let's have a look. So allocated company-owned devices, I was needing to log on to the Wi-Fi using AD credentials. We did that absolutely. Enroll a new employee MacBook onto the MDM. We have done that. We also wanted to set up group policies which would deny social media apps for staff AD credentials and restrict bandwidth to 5 megabits per second. I think we can call that a tick. Successfully completed. Right, on to the second, and this one is unallocated or shared company-owned iPad. So not going to be given to any one employee, but it's going to be handed out for use in sort of common areas of the office, for example, perhaps over lunchtime, something like that, or in a meeting. So let's see what's required here. Checklist says, authenticate to the Wi-Fi using AD credentials. Again, I've got to enroll this iPad onto MDM, just like we did with the Mac. I'm going to enforce a passcode on this iPad and also deny camera-based applications. And finally, I'm going to install Angry Birds onto the iPad. Goodness me, these people seem to have a lot of fun in this office. Right, let's get things started with that configuration. So first thing we're going to do then is set up the restrictions for the iPad. So I'm going to go into the mobile deployment section. Actually, we'll come back to that in just a moment. First thing I need to do actually is to set up mobile profiles. This is what we use to create restrictions and so on and apply them to certain devices. So I'm going to create a profile called shared, and I'll give it a description of unallocated devices. And then you'll notice here under scope it says basically this is saying which devices do you want to deploy this to. We're just doing it to one today, but you could be potentially deploying this to 100 iPads, for example, and this is where the real power of a tool like this comes into play. So I'm going to set up tagging, and I'm going to create a tag, a brand new one called shared, and save those changes. Once that's done, I go to the settings section, and this is where we put the restrictions onto the profile. So here it says profile is shared, that's what's selected. I'm now going to enforce restrictions, and I'm going to just turn off the use of the camera. There's a whole raft of things that I can play with on here. It's very full-featured, a lot of control, especially for the iOS operating system. But we're just going to turn off the camera for testing today, and I'm going to require a passcode as well. I'm happy with these defaults, so a simple value is fine for me. I'd like it to be alphanumeric though, so again, default settings, but you can choose, as you can see, a whole bunch of things to set it up exactly the way you like. So let's save that as well. And you'll see here that we also have other things that we can deploy to these devices. So for example, we can send out Wi-Fi settings, VPN settings, even Exchange server settings using ActiveSync here. So it's a really nice set of tools that we have built into Systems Manager. Right, now that we've done that, it's time to start getting this iPad onto the network so that we can deploy the policy to that. So to do this, I'm going to switch across to a camera view I have. Very sophisticated technology today, pointing directly at an iPad live in the room with me. So we're going to get this iPad joined onto the network. Sorry it's a little bit fuzzy, but hopefully you can see well enough what's going on the screen here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the settings tool on the iPad, and we're going to look at our list of Wi-Fi networks that are available to us. So it normally takes a moment to do this. It sends out a probe request, and all of the APs that are within range are going to respond with their SSIDs. And we know that our MI2 Wi-Fi is there, and there it is towards the bottom, so we just tap that. And again, we are prompted for username and password, just the same as we were on the Mac earlier on. So punch in those credentials and click on Join. And again, we are pushed a certificate from the AD server, so we need to accept that. Make sure we're authenticating appropriately, and we have successfully joined that wireless network. That's good news. Right, let's go to Safari. And in Safari, what I'd like to do is just test out, let's go to try a couple of web pages. Let's try the same ones as before. So let's go to the Meraki.com website. So that's all working very well. By the way, these aren't my hands. I used a hand model for this part, so just bear with us. So let's try Facebook. All right, Facebook is blocked. Okay, that's good. It's all working exactly the way we want it to. So, all right, now we're going to actually get this thing enrolled. So we're going to go to m.meraki.com on the iPad. And there is our request for a network ID, just the same as before. So my hand model will now type that in on the screen. It's quite nice being able to sit here and issue instructions. All right, so registering, and it's exactly the same process as we saw on the Mac. It's going to download the profile, so it's going to request your acceptance of this. So we're going to install the profiles, and this then effectively makes that iPad manageable by Systems Manager. So let that process continue. Install. Done. Click on Done. Excellent. So there we go. We can now look for this device in the dashboard. So let me flip back to my configuration tool. and go to monitor clients once again. And there's the iPad. Good news, it's all going very smoothly. So there's our iPad. So we're going to go into that iPad, and what we're going to do now is we're going to actually apply the tag that I set up a moment ago to this iPad, and then we'll verify that the camera apps have gone. So if I just quickly flip back to the camera view of the iPad screen, you'll see we have a camera app here. We've also got Photo Booth and FaceTime as well. We should expect those to disappear once we've applied this tag. So let me edit the details of this iPad, and here's the list of tags. So we go in here and we just select the tag that we've created, shared. So I'll just click on save, and then I'm going to flip back to the iPad quick as I can, because sometimes this happens very fast. And there they go, the apps have vanished. So it's all working very smoothly. Imran by my side here is quite pleased with how things are progressing. He's looking quite excited. Right, before we move on to the last section, we need to set up Angry Birds. He's quite insistent about getting this on there. So let's get that done. So this is where we add applications, and we can do this with both iOS and Android as well. So we work with both the iTunes Store and the Android Google Play Store as well. But we're doing an iOS app obviously today, so let me just go in and type Angry Birds. This is like a front end to the Apple store. So you need to select the correct store for the country that you're in, obviously UK for us. So let me just type Angry Birds, hit return, and we'll do a search, and there is Angry Birds. We've got a whole bunch of different options here. I'm just going to go for the top one. It should be more than enough to keep them entertained for now. If they want to change it later on, they can always do this themselves. So once I've chosen which applications I want to push out, it's going to ask me where I'm going to deploy these. And again, we're going to use the tagging process we had before. So we have the tag set up, shared, so I'm going to select that. I'm also going to select here that the app should be removed if the MDM profile is taken off the device. And of course, this is quite important for company-based applications, particularly where the data might be a little bit sensitive. Now, really nice recent addition onto Systems Manager is that it now shows us which clients are in scope based on the tag that I've selected for this application to be deployed, and that's a really nice addition there. So I'm just going to click Save, and this will now start deploying to the iPad. Let's go back to the iPad screen once again, and if we flip across to the second page on that iPad screen, in a couple of moments we should see, there we go, the app installation is starting. Good news. We'll let that carry on for a while, but in the meantime, let's go back to the first page of the iPad, and we're going to run a speed test, which is just going to check out the performance. So I'm going to stress it a little bit here because we are downloading an app at the same time, but that's all right. Let's just see what we get. So we restricted it to 5 megabits per second for this user, so it should be there or thereabouts. And often we find this sort of jumps around a little bit, and then it settles right down to the sort of speed we want. There we go. Really nice. Very happy with that. So we're eating into the bandwidth slightly with the download that's going on, but that's really nice. Just exactly what we wanted to see. Good. I think we can say successfully completed that one as well. Let's just do a check on my list. So I'm to authenticate to the Wi-Fi using AD credentials with this iPad. Done. I wanted to enroll it onto MDM. I wanted to enforce a passcode and deny the camera and get Angry Birds installed onto there. We may come back to that later. Tick. Successful. Let's move on to the last one, which is employee-owned personal devices. So as we discussed, we want to use the same SSID to now create an environment for devices which users may bring into the workplace themselves. So we want to make sure that only the devices that have been authorized for access to the network by the IT department can get connected. And we want to then get connected using the AD credentials. We're going to apply the rules that we had before, but we're also going to add video and music apps. So we'll have a new profile for doing this, a new group policy, I should say, and we'll also set a per-device bandwidth limit of 1 megabit per second. All right, let's get things rolling with the last part of the demo. So for this, I'm going to go back to my wireless network. There it is, MI2. And I'm going to go to the Configure Access Control section. And this is where we were earlier on when we created the Radius server. So there it is, all sitting there just as we configured it. But I'm going to add something new here, which is group policies by device type. So far we've created group policies based on user credentials. Now I'm going to do it based on device type. And to make things nice and locked down, I'm going to actually go ahead and block all of these different device types that I can see here. So the ones that I normally see coming into the office, iPads, iPhones, and so on. And this is going to apply to clients that have not been allowed onto the network up to this point, so we can make sure that they are correctly authorized. So Mac OS as well. And last but not least, let's do Windows. Good, so that's what I want to do for now. I have an Android device we're going to use for this one, so we'll test this out in just a few moments' time. What I want to do now is create the policy that it's going to apply on, to these devices once they are authorized for access to the network. So the restrictions we've just placed are like a catch-all. They're the fallback that will apply to all devices once until they are authorized for access to the network. So I'm just going to create this new group policy called BYOD. And I'm going to restrict bandwidth this time, and this time it's going to be down to 1 megabit per second. And I'm also going to go in and do those custom firewall rules again. So we'll do social web and photo sharing just like we did before, but we'll also add this time video and music applications as well. So click on Save there. There was one thing I forgot to mention on the access control page. When we were setting up, let me go back to that quickly just to show you. When we were setting up this catch-all for all of these devices, I just wanted to make the point that you can also do something very similar to this using the Active Directory server itself. I haven't actually got access to the AD server today, so what I'm just going to do is use the dashboard option. So it's really up to you whether you want to integrate into an existing environment, which is maybe very deep into the policies world, or you can create a lot of these, of course, on the Cisco Meraki dashboard as we're doing today. Right, so now that we've got that set up, I want to see what the user experience is like. So to do this, I'm going to go back to the other Mac that I enrolled earlier, which has an Android device connected to it. This is all rather convoluted, but here is my Android phone, and this is my cat Pippa, by the way. Say hello to Pippa, everybody. And we're now going to see what kind of user experience we have when we try to connect this Android device to the wireless network. So we are live here. This is a live demonstration. So I'm going to go into my list of Wi-Fi networks. Very similar to what you see on iOS. This is the Android look. I'm sure familiar to all you Android users out there. And the top of my list is MI2 Wi-Fi, and that's the one I want to connect to. So let me attempt to connect to that now. So it recognizes that it needs login credentials. So once again, I'm going to just type in Ethan's credentials. So username and password. And let's get connected. Right, so it has successfully connected me right the way through onto that network. And so now we're going to find out what happens when we try to use a device that's not yet authorized for access to the network. So when we do this, you'll notice here it says at the top, sign on to the Wi-Fi network. So I'm going to do that right now. And this is like a web browser redirect, and what it's actually doing is it's taking me to a block screen. It's telling me that I'm not allowed to get access to this network. Let's test this further. Let's imagine that I'm wanting to put this to the test. So I'm going to try to go to Facebook, and right now it's actually worked. That's a bit of a nuisance. Let's try a different website. It may be that it hasn't fully registered it yet. So there we go. I think it's actually because the Facebook website was cached in DNS on my browser. I think that's the reason it happened. So let's try a different website again. Let's try going to twitter.com. Yeah, it's actually doing it in the inverse of what we expect there, but that's fine. I think that's really what we've seen there is that when we do a DNS lookup for the first time, it's actually doing the setting those rules on there. So the Android can't currently go to all the websites successfully. So I'm going to try and fix that right now. I'm going to authorize this device for connection to the network. So to do this, I'm going to go into my list of clients here. And so my Android is not showing up in here because it hasn't yet been authorized for access to this network. So what I'm going to do is use this manual add client tool. And let's put in the details for Ethan's Nexus 4. And then I need to type in the actual MAC address for that device. So let me just punch that in here, put it written down on my piece of paper. Okay, and I want that device to connect to this group policy, to have this group policy applied. So let's do add clients, and that's it done. So now when we attempt to reconnect, we should get a different experience. So let me go back to my wireless. Let me just change back to the screen so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll just go into Wi-Fi, and first thing I'm going to do is just forget the network, and I'm going to need to rejoin it again. So let's go into MI2 Wi-Fi, and again I'm prompted for those user IDs, user credentials. So Ethan, impossible, and connect. Right, we are successfully now connected to that network, but this time we should get a different experience, and so all the sites that I tried should work absolutely fine now, except for the ones that we have blocked because we have logged in as Ethan. So now when we attempt to log into this network, we're going to see a different experience. Let's try and go to Facebook. And there we go, the browser is actually being blocked, so it's actually a firewall rule that's blocking this. It's going to time out on the browser, so that's good, that's what I want. We're also going to try YouTube because remember we blocked video and music as well. And there we go, we get a block message on there as well. So now we're getting the correct behavior we expect to see. But let's try a website we think will work, and that's Meraki.com. Let's try that one. There we go, that's working nicely, so that's just loading up. Good. Right, so last but not least, we're going to do a speed test to make sure we're getting the speed that I expect on this Android device. So let me go into my speed test tool, and I'm going to restart the test on here. And we should be expecting to get around 1 megabit per second. So as I said before, it normally jumps around a little bit and then it settles right down to the speed you want. And that looks absolutely perfect, so I'm happy with that. Okay, good. I'm very happy with that. I think we have a successfully completed mission there. Let's go back and check that list one more time. Right, so I was to only allow authenticated devices onto the Wi-Fi after being authorized by IT. So we hit a little glitch during the demo on that part. That was because my browser on my Android phone had those websites actually cached already in DNS, and so it didn't need to do a lookup. And it's actually based on a DNS lookup that blocking process goes into a force. So I would expect that to happen correctly if I'd gone to different websites. But that's fine. I'm happy with the behavior. So I logged on successfully. I was able to verify that I had denied social media applications and also video and music applications, and also we tested that bandwidth restriction of 1 megabit per second. I think we can call that a success. Great. So I think we can successfully say that the mission has been successfully accomplished. Right, it's time for me to hand back to Imran. Thanks very much, everyone.
Well, once again, Simon, well done. The mission has been accomplished. I do try to trip him up every time I do these, make these missions, but he stumps me every time, and he's once again completed the mission. And again, we've done it within the hour, so very well done to you, Simon. Round of applause. Right, so normally at this time I bring it back and have a little bit of a Jerry Springer moment and final thoughts of the day, so let's do that. Before we move on to that, just wanted to remind everybody of our excellent evaluation program that we have going on here at Cisco Meraki. So if anything Simon has gone through today has sparked an interest and you're keen to try the equipment out for yourself, there really is no better proof than trying it out for yourself. So you can try any one of the devices, including the wireless APs we've just been demonstrating with, but it extends to our security appliances as well as our switches. So if you're interested in trying it out, you can register for a trial at meraki.cisco.com/eval. Complimentary technical assistance is available should you need it to give you a hand setting it up, and it's totally risk-free. If you do find for whatever reason the equipment is not for you, you can simply pop it back in the box. There's a prepaid label in there, just fix it to the outside of the box, and that's the end of that. So it's something I would highly recommend. So I did just want to bring things back now and really say, so what? We've done an excellent demonstration of really setting up an entire enterprise-grade network, I'm sure you'll agree, in less than an hour. So really, some of the things that you get from the dashboard and from using the cloud architecture is really it increases the IT efficiency of your organization. And it does so in three major ways, really: manageability, scalability, and cost savings. So you just saw how much of a turnkey installation management the setup was. One of the other things that is also included in the dashboard is because each one of our Cisco Meraki hardware devices are always connected to the cloud. So what this means is it's always integrated with the latest up-to-date features. So anytime that your network requires a firmware update, this will happen automatically via over-the-web's firmware updates. So all you need to do when you're first setting up the network is actually just say when you'd like these updates to happen, and that's it. Then forget about it. They will just happen at your designated time, which normally is in the wee hours of the mornings when network usage is likely to be negligible. So this particularly comes into its own and really becomes a big advantage when you've got an extremely large network estate spanning multiple locations and consisting of hundreds of networking devices. So whenever the network does need an update, you don't have to go around manually interacting with the Wi-Fi controllers and whatnot. This will happen really without any intervention. The architecture also scales to organizations of all sizes. So for those of you who joined us for Mission Impossible 1, you will all know the procedure here. It's literally registering some access points onto our web-based dashboard. You don't even have to be present physically with the hardware devices. You can do them, register them by order numbers or serial numbers, and they will simply then pop up on the dashboard. If you're interested, again, in a bit of background about the Mission Impossible 1, again, it is on YouTube, so feel free to watch it. So it really does scale to organizational size. So what we did today was literally just set up one access point at our offices here. However, this can very easily be extended out to a bunch of different access points. So the same inventory that Simon was picking from earlier on, say, for example, we had 100 more access points in there. All we would need to do in order to have the same setup that we had today is actually just make those live. Select that we want this SSID MI2 available on those access points, and they don't even have to be at this location in our London offices. They can be anywhere in the world. We would have the same user experience that we just showed today. So really doing everything this way and really centralizing your IT team is going to reduce your operational costs quite significantly. And we've got numerous examples on our website if you are interested in reading case studies split by region and industry. Feel free to log on to meraki.cisco.com/customers. We've got customers who really are enjoying the fruits of the cloud management and scalability. So really, I just wanted to finish off with today we set up a wireless access point using the cloud dashboard. Of course, from the cloud dashboard, we can also use the mobile device management, which we also showed today, and also our Meraki MS Ethernet switches and security appliances. So this is all possible from the dashboard and completely one single pane. You don't need a separate management console for now for your firewalls, a separate one for your switches, separate one for your MDM, separate one for wireless. Everything can be done on one single pane. We've even got Google Maps integrated into the solution to facilitate multi-site management. It's all done right there for you. So what we're going to do now is actually take a bit of a break and have an intermission. So we're going to enjoy Angry Birds for a couple of minutes, give you guys time to ask any questions that you have, and we'll come back and review questions that we've had coming in and any recurring ones that we've had in the past. We do have a comedy question that came in. We were asked by a gentleman asking if this started at 3 o'clock. Unfortunately not, sir. This actually did start at 2 o'clock, so you have missed the bulk of the presentation. However, don't fear, we have recorded it, so you will be able to watch it at a later time on YouTube. Got a great question here, which we get often. What happens in the unlikely event that connection to the cloud is lost? Great question, and something we get a lot. So earlier on I was mentioning the out-of-band cloud management that we have in every product. What we also have is hardware that's specifically designed to be managed via the cloud and handle the rigors of cloud management. So our hardware has extra memory and CPU built in to really deal with all this. So anytime that you make a configuration settings change on the dashboard, this will get stored onto the device locally. So even in the unlikely event you did lose connection to the cloud, first of all, your local area network would work, and second of all, it would work exactly how you had it configured to do so. So yeah, great question. Quick hardware question about the APs. Do they support PoE? Yes, absolutely. Most of our access points do support PoE. In fact, our switches also support PoE and PoE+. Question here about what happens after the license has expired. You do need a valid license to be able to manage access points and our entire hardware through the dashboard. So unfortunately, if your license does expire, you would lose management capability of your entire network. However, we do have many, many reminders getting more and more frequent as the expiration date comes to fruition. So this is a very, very minimal chance of your network actually being switched off. We've got questions here asking about typical range of a Cisco Meraki access point, and really how many clients can we serve simultaneously. Again, something we get quite often, and what we normally suggest here, and something we highly recommend, is actually performing a site survey to test out exactly in your own environment how many access points you would need. We have multiple partners we work with, and we can even work with partners you may have already. So feel free to give us a call after the webinar, and we can point you in the direction of a partner to perform a site survey for you. However, for the question about how many clients simultaneously can we get on any given access point, normally what we quote is over 100 clients simultaneously connected to any given access point. So this is very, very dependent on your own environment. So what I would recommend again is taking out one of our access points on a trial. You're more than welcome to take out any one of the access points from our MR12s through to our new 802.11 AC models, the MR34, and actually see how many clients you can throw onto it in your own environment, which would be the best indicator. And something our customers actually do as a matter of course when they're going through selecting Cisco Meraki as their wireless vendor. So great question. Just to confirm for a question which access points is offered to attendees for this webinar, it's an MR12. So yeah, you can read up about it all on our website even before it arrives. We've got data sheets available, so if you just go to meraki.cisco.com, all of our data sheets are on our website. Time for one final question. We've got many coming in. I can almost smell the burning with the guys here in the room typing away. Question about our free trials. How long are they? They are typically 2 weeks. However, we can extend them in some circumstances. So we are just about out of time today, folks. Thank you very much for joining us today. For myself and Simon, we are available for birthday parties if you do want to book us out, but please do book well in advance. We do get booked up not very easily at all. But the rest of the team here, we're going to go enjoy Angry Birds now. There is a very short 2-question survey as you leave the door, which would be very appreciative to take a couple of seconds to answer. Just helps us improve the content and quality of the webinar for future attendees. And also, maybe you want to have a request for MI3, what content we should have in there. So Simon's looking at me very worried here because he's about to go collapse in a heap. But please do feel free to suggest. And thanks very much, and have a great day. We're going to go play Angry Birds right now.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected. Goodbye.